We'll call this meeting to order of the Ventura County Board of Supervisors for March 4th, 2008. Roberta, will you call the roll?
Supervisor Long? Here. Supervisor Parks? Here. Supervisor Bennett?
Here.
Supervisor Flynn? Here. And Supervisor Ford?
Here. We have a moment of affirmation by Pastor Doug Posey.
Thank you. I'm Pastor Doug Posey from Living Oaks Community Church in Newbury Park, and when I was asked to do this moment of affirmation, I was told it was about 5 minutes. My first thought was, as a preacher, I can't even clear my throat in 5 minutes. But I promise I won't be like the long-winded pastor I heard about who was preaching along with one of his lengthy sermons, and right in the middle, a man walked out and then walked back in at the end of the service. And so the pastor, out of curiosity, asked him, "Why'd you walk out in the middle of my sermon?" The man said, "Because I needed a haircut." The pastor said, "Why didn't you get your haircut before the service?" He said, "I didn't need one then." So hopefully if you didn't come in needing a haircut, you won't need one at the end of this little affirmation. But I want to thank you for giving me the privilege of opening this session of the Ventura County Board of Supervisors with a moment of affirmation. And I looked up that word to affirm, or affirmation, and it is to declare support for something. An affirmation is a positive declaration of support. And it reminded me of another word I'm familiar with, and that's the word blessing. So I looked up blessing, and interestingly, if you look up the word bless, one definition is to declare approval and support for somebody or something. So very similar definitions. So today, I want to give you some support for what you're doing, for the task to which you all have been called, and the awesome responsibility that you've been given. And I'd like to do that both by way of an affirmation and a blessing. So first I want to affirm and support what you're doing by way of example. Some of you might have seen the movie that came out a little over a year ago called Amazing Grace. And it was a story of a politician serving in England in the late 1700s and early 1800s, and his name was William Wilberforce. I highly recommend the movie. If you haven't seen it, get it on DVD and watch it. At least go to wikipedia.com and look up William Wilberforce and read about his life. It would be inspiring for you, especially in your positions. But Wilberforce was a popular figure in British politics, as well as being deeply committed as a Christian. And he struggled with seeing the real significance of his political life in light of his faith. In fact, he seriously entertained the idea of withdrawing from political life and just going into a life of contemplation, and really feeling that he might better serve God if he just pursued his faith and did God's work that way. And after an epic and emotional struggle, Wilberforce concluded that he could do God's work far more effectively from his position of authority as a political leader rather than becoming a religious recluse. And so his strong faith empowered him to pursue the abolition of the slave trade in England. In fact, he led that fight, and his fight led to the Slavery Abolition Act of 1833. And Wilberforce effectively ended the transatlantic slave trade. Now, that obviously changed history. And as people in authority, you have the opportunity to change history. As one nation under God, your authority ultimately comes from Him. And He has put you in a position to make a difference. And I want you to see that position as Wilberforce saw his calling. And don't grow weary in well-doing. What you do here could change history. And I would ask that you would make the kinds of decisions that God can bless. And that leads me to the next part of this moment of affirmation, and that's the blessing. And this blessing you're probably familiar with. It's called the Aaronic blessing because it was given to Moses and then given by Moses to Aaron as a blessing with which to bless God's people. It may be familiar to you, so I'd like to share that blessing with you and give a little commentary between the lines. It starts this way. May the Lord bless you. In other words, may He affirm and support you in this task to which you've been called. And keep you. In other words, may He protect you and your families and keep you close to Him. May He make His face to shine upon you. In other words, may you experience the abundance of His blessing in your lives. And may He be gracious to you. In other words, may you be the recipient of His undeserved and unmerited favor. That's what grace is. It's undeserved and unmerited. May He be gracious to you. May he lift up his countenance upon you. In other words, may you see his face. When God is in disapproval, he turns his face away. May he see your face. May you see his face, and may he look favorably upon you. And finally, may he give you peace. The Apostle Paul reminds us that there's a peace that surpasses all understanding. A peace that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in the midst of unpeaceful circumstances, but you can still experience that peace. That is the peace of God. So may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Let's pray. Lord, bless this gathering. I pray that each one would make the kinds of decisions that conform to your will, that as a group, that you would affirm the work of their hands. And I thank you for each and every person. Bless them in a special way. I pray these things in the matchless name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you very, very much. We do have an awesome responsibility, and I appreciate you pointing that out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. Chair, I have a card on that.
Do we have a card? No. Huh? He does have a card? I'm sorry? Okay. You want to do it at your speak? You want to do it now? Okay.
Lord, I'd like to affirm the United States Supreme Court and its checks and balances upon our government, and affirm that I have stood within the rulings of that supreme body.
Thank you. All right. Supervisor Long, would you like to do the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right. We have the minutes of December 18th. We have a second. And we need to vote here. Now, I think I was told that the voting's not going to show up on the screen. Okay. Is it going to show up here on this?
The motion was approved unanimously.
Okay. So you're going to say that now? Okay. Thank you. We have agenda review.
Yes, we have two items. Item number 22 on the agenda title only. The item requires a 4/5 vote. I believe it does say that on the letter, but on the agenda item title it does not. And item 23, there's a revised Exhibit D. I believe you received that this morning.
Okay. And then we have our consent part. Oh, I'm sorry. A motion to accept. Okay, we'll vote.
Motion is approved unanimously.
All right, thank you. We'll move to our consent items 10 through 13. Do we have any questions or anything on this?
I do.
you
I
do? I'm
was
sorry.
wondering if I have a question on item 12. A quick one that could probably be answered quickly.
You what?
12.
You want to?
So we
okay.
do that now?
Yeah, let's do it now. We have
Okay.
the young man out here to tell us all about it.
Good morning, Alec Prime, Public Works Agency.
Hi. This is the tabulation of our monthly contracts, and I'm seeing a lot of Zs. And Z, as I understand, means that payment not processed. And 2, 4, 6, about 8 of them are all payment not processed. And I'm wondering if you can tell me what that means.
Generally, it means that there was no pay due, and for that reason, there was no payment processed.
Okay, so it's kind of doesn't mean anything happened. Okay, I was just wondering if there was a problem with the way we're processing, or we're not getting payments, or if it just. And the other question I had, and probably Supervisor Bennett knows best about this. There was an item which is the Caruso Street Sidewalk Improvement Project. And I'm just wondering what that is. I might be pronouncing it wrong. Cruzeiro?
I'm not that familiar with it. It's one Butch Britt is managing, other than the obvious as far as the title is concerned. Yeah, but, sorry.
That was a project approved by your board on the, under the Safe Route to Schools grant for putting in sidewalks on Cruzeiro Street and the, I believe it's the Miners Oaks area.
Okay. Safe routes to school, yeah.
Safe Route to School grant wasn't
What did I
county
say?
money.
Okay, because there's still, as I'm seeing, there are instances where we do build sidewalks still in the county, and then there are county sidewalks. Is that right? They're not a private they're not private sidewalks. They're county sidewalks that then where.
It is generally the county's policy that we do not build sidewalks if they're not provided as part of the development of the subdivision. There are special programs such as the Safe Route to Schools program that will provide sidewalks or walking paths for children walking to school. We try to look for those opportunities when they are available.
And does it also, would the Safe Routes to School grant pay for the repair of sidewalks that lead to a school?
No, ma'am, it does not pay for repair of existing sidewalks.
So it's just new ones that we
Yes,
put
ma'am.
in? And then whose responsibility is it to repair that sidewalk that we're putting in?
If it's put in, it belongs, the responsibility to repair it under county ordinance is responsibility of the adjacent property owners.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other questions on the consent?
If there are no other, I'll be glad to move the consent agenda.
Second, I just wanted to point out, since we're on 12, just to, for example, you were asking about the Z payments there. If we look at the very first one that's listed there, Rancho Cumulus, the original price was $79, and the revised price was $12.4, and then the previous payments was $12.4, and so since they already paid what was owed, cumulative payments are $12.4. That's why there's a Z. There's no payment because they've already paid it. That's essentially the right way to analyze that. Great, thank you.
Just ask one further question, Mr. Chair. Butch, is this, and I'm familiar with the Safe Schools program because we've used some of it ourselves. Is this a match required from the road?
Typically on those type of projects, we try to use, we try to get a little bit innovative and try to use another grant program, which is, I believe, I can't remember the number of it, but it's a pedestrian and bicycle program so that we're not matching with county road funds in general.
Okay, thank you.
So let me just, okay, so going back, we put sidewalks in certain times, but it's never paid by the county. It's always paid by some kind of grant or some other program.
We try not to pay for sidewalks out of county road funds, no, sir.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. I don't know how you guys read that. That's so little. Okay. Anyway, so we have a motion and we have a second? Nobody's done the second yet? Okay. All right, then we'll vote. Okay. All right. Let's go to our regular agenda. 22? Oh, I'm sorry. I want to get through it.
I can see why you wanted to skip.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Let's go to public comment. Do we have any? Yeah, we're going to move it along. Okay, Carol Dean Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Foy. I'd like to address you as chair of the board this morning. I live in a city that has a city charter since 1933, and that city charter made it a crime to violate it. The state legislature passed the Brown Act in 1953, which guaranteed me the right to appear before you and do certain things and not do certain things. So, this is the certified minutes of the Ventura City Council, and I'm going to read it word for word. Now listen close, Mr. Foy, please. Carol Dean Williams appeared before the council asking, is the council going to do anything about the police chief's violation of Section 832.5 of the Penal Code? Unquote. This is what the city council did. Councilman McWhirter offered a motion that this be the last time that this particular subject and complaint is addressed by the city council, and that the action be enforced by the police department, which motion was seconded by Council Monahan, and upon call of the roll, the vote thereon was as follows, unanimous. This is an active resolution today to have me arrested by the Ventura Police Department. This action was taken under oral communications, which has now been agendaized as public comments, where action cannot be taken. The state attorney general has an opinion that that's a felony because 2 or more persons conspired to violate the law. That is what I am living under, Mr. Foy. So therefore, the multiple arrest of an innocent man, me, and putting the steel handcuffs on me to violate the most basic principles of our government. And by the way, I'm reading John Adams by David McCullough. You talk about a book, you need to read John Adams. I am the political character of John Adams. I've read enough to know that. This is what the United States Supreme Court has said, and this is what I practice. How can government, that's you, regulate speech in the interest of protecting children when the speech occurs before a mixed audience of children and adults? The pity answer, it simply cannot do so. There is no and can be no baseline for oral speech before a mixed audience. Either children unavoidably hear some adult expression, or we reduce the level of speech to what is suitable to a sandbox. I do not see no sand in this room. The state cannot neutrally define what words or manner are offensive or establish any meaningful standard to measure offensiveness. Justice Marshall Harlan memorial phrase in Cohen was that one man's vulgarity is another's lyrics, and government's inability to make principled distinction means, quote, the Constitution leaves matters of taste and style so largely to the individual. If you will read John Adams and see the personal sacrifice that he made to ride his horse to Pennsylvania for the First Continental Congress, to be separated from the wife that he loved, from the children that he loved, because it was John Adams, our first vice president, our second president. If you will read him, because he wrote a diary, this is in John's own words. It is awesome. It has established my political character. And evidently I have the same voice as him, as described in the book. But I do not believe he was ever called out of order.
Thank you. Appreciate that. John Adams, it is a great book. It's very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Armando Vasquez.
It's like the old regulars again, ladies and gentlemen. This is, could you turn that on, please? This is our latest class, ladies and gentlemen. 41 kids. This is our previous class, young ladies. I think all of them, as I told you before, in one way or another, have been sexually abused. we're going to try the pictures today. This is another one of our ankle bracelet stuff. And this is some of our kids from juvenile hall when we were doing the juvenile hall thing. I affirm that I'm going to be here until I die. I've been doing this for over 40 years. I'm not going to give up. Not one day that I come before you do we have the luxury of money. It's always a wanting necessity, commodity in the work that we do. But it's all good. I want to tell you about what can happen. As a matter of fact, yesterday we were doing affirmations with these young people. About 35, 40 years ago, I was one of those kids. The CETA program helped me get my first paying job. Taught me to be a lifeguard. And I got my first car working those summer programs. The city of Oxnard is saying they're going to put 120 to 200 jobs on the table. I don't know if I can say this. 120, 200 trabajos. I can say it like that. If I could say it in Chinese, I'd say it as well. This is revolutionary. This is incredibly important. All I'm asking is for you guys to be a little creative. Probation has some money. Sheriffs have some money. The adult WIB people can be a little flexible. I need you guys to help these young people in our community out, please. Please, please, please. I'll be coming, bugging that. You guys, until we get some action, I really, really want to thank you for your consideration, and please take this into account. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I ask Marty if you would join me in visiting the program so we can take a look at it? Thank you.
Denise Davis?
Good morning. I'm Denise Davis. I'm Vice President of Communications for Yonan Properties, and my purpose here today is to make an introduction and to respectfully ask that the Board of Supervisors at a later date allow Yonan Properties to present its proposal. We continue to be interested in acquiring the Port Royal Restaurant in Channel Islands Harbor and developing that site into a 5-star restaurant. The board may be aware several weeks ago the Ventura County Star published an article on our chairman and CEO, Isaiah Yonan, and on the company. As part of that, they discussed the development in Channel Islands Harbor, and Mr. Yonan described his ongoing interest and the company's interest in developing that. We've received an outpouring of community comment. 100% support. I would tell you if it was otherwise, but it's not. 100% support from the residents in the area and businesses that are supportive of development in Channel Islands Harbor. Again, we would ask that at a later date you would allow us to make the full proposal so that it may be judged on its merits. And I thank you so much, and I hope you have a very successful meeting today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
you.
that. Thanks.
Supervisor Foy?
Yes.
Could I ask that an offer be made and presented to our harbor director that we can consider?
I'm not in a position, Supervisor Parks, to speak to the specific. As I understand it, there was an offer, and there has been a full proposal that was
Okay, so it's that same offer we got like a
Well, I
few
believe at
months
this
ago.
point the offer had expired
Okay.
because of the time, but the company and Mr. Yonan continue to be interested in moving forward and probably in agreement with all of the supervisors that the harbor continue to experience some positive development that seems to have escaped it in the last
Okay.
few years.
We'll look forward to seeing if there's another offer on the table. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
I would hope, oh, excuse me.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I would hope that the board will listen to an offer. Mr. Yunin is a resident of the county. He lives on Potrero Road and has other properties in Ventura County. And I would hope because of that, in addition to other reasons, that we listen to the proposal. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to board comments. Supervisor Long, you want to go first? I can.
Good morning. Thank you. Just a quick comment on that last comment, just to say that this board has a process when we're dealing with properties that in the harbor that work through the CEO's office and our harbor director to bring to the board, particularly when you're talking about lease agreements and lease proposals, which have certainly the interest of the board, but also have the protection of closed session discussions for proprietary rights, etc. And I'm probably not phrasing that correctly under leasehold, so that's all the comment I'd make on that last comment. I'd ask that the board adjourn in memory of this list that I'll present from those in the 3rd District. And I will also like to let the board know that on Saturday there was a ceremony held out at the California National Guard, and it was to present to 8 cities in the county, our most populous cities, that the C-130Js, which are the newest model of aircraft to be used by the Air National Guard, which were acquired through years of work of both the RDP-21 partnership and Elton Gallagher's office and lobbying trips to Washington, that these 8 new C-130Js were acquired. And they are at the base, and the base, in response to the community's efforts and work, and the congressmen and others, named the airplanes after the 8 populous cities. And so we were out there for the dedication ceremony on Saturday, and it was really pretty neat. There is not a County of Ventura one yet, but we have our sights set on getting 3 or 4 more of these C-130Js, because, as you know, the Air National Guard does a variety of work, both in our nation and globally. And these planes are used, and they're the workhorse of aircraft, and they are and the Air National Guard was just very proud, one, to have them and have the partnership of the community in acquiring this aircraft. So again, the 8 cities and their representatives from the cities who were there to receive this and celebrate this naming event. And clearly there's an interest to acquire more, and I think that will proceed on our roster with RDP-21. But I received a certificate on behalf of the RDP-21 representing this event, and also there was one for Supervisor Foy. Mark Lund was there with his son, which was nice, to receive these, and it's a great picture of the C-130Js. And as you know, they're called on for fire response and a variety of other things, so it really is quite an asset to have in our county, along with strengthening the position of the 146th Airlift Wing National Guard in our county. So that was it was a nice event. Just wanted to mention that to you.
Can I ask you a question with that?
Sure.
Doesn't that also bring, when they bring those additional airplanes, as we were back in Washington, they bring a lot of employment with those planes
Yes,
too?
it does.
Additional employment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. On the base for maintenance and all those, plus the one of the escorts they assigned escorts to two groups, and one of the escorts was one of the aviators for one of the C-130s. I think he was 15. I mean, he looked that young, but he lives here. In fact, he lives in Camarillo, has his family. I mean, so absolutely, there are many benefits that are received in our county from this particular operation at the base and the work that RDP 21 does to bring these operations to our base. Tomorrow, just to let you know, is the 66th birthday of our Seabees, and there will be a celebration of that. And always good to recognize the good work of our Seabees in the county. And then I'd like to just make a comment on the. I attended the California Cities Gang Prevention Network Conference in Los Angeles last Thursday and Friday with the team from the Community Action Partnership that has been formed with Oxnard and the county and many county agencies and Oxnard representatives. And at this conference with Mayor Holden, City Manager Grace Hoffman, Chief of Police John Crombeck, Barbara Marquez O'Neill, who is working the action plan. And there was lots of, it was a very good conference talking about the 13 cities that are part of this grant funding program and what's being done in those cities. Obviously looking to learn from one another and what are best practices and successes over this last year. Oxnard presented a very comprehensive report as to the work that is underway in the community, which includes our strong leadership from our faith community, who is also present with us, Edgar Mahorka. And it really does go beyond gang violence. That is the main focus, and talks just about violence and how we as a community need to work together. The issues of suppression, intervention, prevention as that three-legged stool to really tackle issues in our community related to gang violence and violence in general. And I just share that with you to say that there is a strategic planning process that's been underway, and the final, potentially the final planning session of that will take place in a couple of weeks. When that planning process, strategic planning process is complete, the team will want to come and make a presentation to the board to let you know, because we invest in this process, to let you know the hundreds of meetings that have taken place in the community with focus groups, with families, with parents, obviously with good folks like the Cafe NA people, and what will come out of the strategic planning report will be some action steps of things that will become, I believe, a permanent part of how we work with our community in addressing violence in our communities. And I'm certainly involved with this. Supervisor Flynn is also to be able to look at this as a template that we can take to all parts of our county where we know we have challenges with either gang issues or violence in general in the family. So it really is good work underway. I think there's no question that Oxnard has been recognized by the League of Cities in this work as one of the leaders, both in where we are in the strategic planning process, who we have at the table of the stakeholders, and it was a good conference. So I wanted to let you know of that participation. And that concludes my comments this morning.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Parks?
Thank you. I also would ask that the board close in honor of the people of this list from people in the 2nd District. And then I'd like to talk a little bit about an event that I attended. I actually attended a couple of events. One of them was very special, and it involved a life-saving effort that was, she really showed a system that worked. A little 5-week-old baby named Tommy Anthony was saved and really considered a miracle baby, brought back to life. He had stopped breathing from I believe it was a type of virus. And we had our dispatchers performing perfectly, being able to assist the father. You had the fire paramedics come, and it was amazing to go to this event, which was a breakfast to honor the lifesavers that brought this child back to life, and see this paramedic who, last time he saw this baby, it was essentially dead. And then to see the baby alive and healthy, and the smile on this face, and like you said, like a 15-year-old, he was a young paramedic, and it was just so nice to see how beaming he was with happiness for this child, as was everyone in the station. The ambulance company was there, and they participated in saving this child. The ER from Los Robles Hospital was there, people who had helped also save this child. The child ended up having to go to UCLA, and it was just a really neat thing to see. And I think it was the mother who said the system worked. You really saw the system worked. And there was a brief some footage that was taken by a local news show, and I was wondering if we could play that. I think it's only about a minute. I think they do have it up and running for us.
For the men and women that helped save their baby's life.
I wouldn't be the person I am without him.
An emotional moment for Lisa Anthony, thanking those who saved her 10-week-old baby, Tommy.
It's got a little.
5-week-old baby's not breathing.
It was January 25th, and then 5
He's got a little fire engine on his sweatshirt.
respiratory diarrhea infection.
I heard a gas, and I found him in bed, not breathing.
That is the
911
mother.
Dispatcher Tanya King met Tommy for the first time.
I believe that's the dispatcher who was able to help the father with CPR, and that's the father, Dan Anthony, and they have a little girl. So it really was something, and what a nice idea too. One of our nurses has decided to do a French toast breakfast to honor whenever there is a successful life-saving. That's the paramedic that I was mentioning, and how happy he obviously
John
was to
Newhilly
be
is
there.
that firefighter paramedic who took over.
There's things that you see on this job that normal, everyday people don't see, and there's the highs and the lows. And this is definitely one of those moments which is very rewarding.
These paramedics and the doctors and nurses at Los Robles Hospital worked on Tommy for about 45 minutes before he started breathing on his own.
Teamwork has saved this guy's life. And he's beautiful. He's just a perfect little boy.
These heroes awarded life-saving pins at a CPR Save breakfast at Fire Station 32. They don't need to wear pins for the Anthonys.
But I always thought of them as heroes, but now forever, I mean, I'm in debt. And I'll stop and I'll talk to them and thank every firefighter, every paramedic. I'll thank them along the way because absolutely they saved my son's life. They saved, my family's life. All of us wouldn't be the same without Tommy here.
Yes, I did get an opportunity to hold him too. What a great idea, though, to also celebrate the work and best French toast I've ever had. Another event that I attended was a regional transportation workshop that was held in Santa Barbara on Saturday, and I was a speaker there. But it was very nice to see the support that Santa Barbara has and how desirous they were of working with Ventura County. And in putting together this speech, I came up with some information from the different departments and agencies out there. From our Transportation Commission, I found that the Coastal Express, a bus between the two counties, Santa Barbara and Ventura County, started off with 28,000 passengers back in 2001. And from 28,000, they are now expected to go to 200,000 this year. So that's pretty remarkable. And from Caltrans, they told me that it would take an extra $1 billion that they don't have just to maintain the existing freeway system the way it is in California. That's just to repair and maintain. They're $1 billion in the hole. So that kind of gives you an idea about how bad off our infrastructure is, and we know it also from our county angle too. And then I just wanted to inform the board that when we had our legislative platform before us, I requested that we go ahead and support the Triumphant Sanitation District because they had voted in support of becoming an all-elected board if we do it by district. And to do it by district, you'd have to change state law. So I ask that we support that effort. I guess Monday night, or Wednesday night, the Triumphant Sanitation District voted to not have us support it. So with that, yes, they don't want us to assist and support. So with that, I would just ask that we will have to stop our efforts, and they just don't want to be all elected. It's pretty clear to me. And we had an opportunity to get legislation in this year. Now they want to study it, and so it won't be able to happen at least until 2009. And I just, they're obviously not desirous. Yeah, there might be a better name than Triumphal for this board, for that board, but it is dominated by appointees, and those appointees don't live in the district. So it's unfortunate for the residents out there, but we'll keep seeing what other options we have available. So, but I do thank the board for supporting it. It's obviously our support isn't desired. And with that ends my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. A great video. Supervisor Flynn? I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. I really liked your comments about the baby and the miracle that seemingly a miracle that seemed to happen. And I say that as a father of 6 children. So the image is tremendous, has a tremendous impact on me. Just some other comments, and Supervisor Long helped me bring up an issue here about the Air National Guard. The Air National Guard, when it came to Ventura County, it came from Van Nuys. No longer did Van Nuys want the Air National Guard there. Most communities don't like airports. So here's an airport coming in, right? And so it became very controversial in the county, much before anything to do with BRAC or the regional planning for military and that sort of thing. It was back in the time of Ed Jones was on the board. And it was a 3-2 vote, and the representatives from Camarillo and Thousand Oaks voted against it, so it was a 3-2 vote. I was a swing vote on that, so I feel good about that being in our county and the people involved with it. At that time, there were supposed to be promises of support during fires, but I think we need to reinvigorate that support again with them. The issue is the consideration of a proposal by Mr. Unin. I think that should happen. I don't think we should be afraid of that. And sometimes the process gets in the way of considering good proposals. I sometimes wonder if we had a process in effect when Martin Smith and the harbor was started, and Mr. Binger and all those people, if they would have landed a lease, I don't know if they would have under the present way we do things. We simply need to open it up more. Sometimes the lease discussions in closed session are paired with whether or not we ought to have that facility, whether or not we ought to have the Maritime Museum be there, or Mr. Unin's property, or whatever. And now those are discussions for the public. Those aren't to take place in the back room. What takes place in the back room should be solely the lease issues. Nothing more, nothing less, I think. So we need to not be afraid, board members, to open up the process to try to get the best deal for the public. That's what we're here for. So I would hope that we can do that. And when we talk about the Oxnard issues, I hope that we can give this KEYS program some real good consideration. It's been around for a long time. It's been struggling to keep alive. You saw the pictures of the young people there. Many of those young people's lives have been turned around. And if we need to find a way to help them, we should do that. That should be one of our major efforts, I would hope. And that's why I invited Marty to come let's take a look at that together, that program. And, Mr. Chair, I hope that you will adjourn in memory of the people on this list. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Bennett?
Yeah, I'd like to ask the board to adjourn in memory of the people on this list. I'd like to call out Alice Rios. She was part of the Ventura Unified School District for the last 20 years. The other comment I'd just like to make is I'd like to compliment again Supervisor Long spends quite a bit of time outside of the district or outside the county representing us and going down to that gang conference down in Los Angeles. Just another example of that, 2 days down there and bringing back good information about an important subject. And that's good. That's just good, hard, behind-the-scenes work. And then it's nice to get a smile put on your face by Supervisor Parks' presentation this morning with the baby. And so the other thing I'd like to thank Supervisor Parks for her participation in the Santa Barbara transportation meeting. There's a contingent in Santa Barbara that I think is very anxious to work with us on trying to improve mass transit between Santa Barbara and Ventura, and we have a growing number of people. It's a mule train going up every morning and coming back every night, and consistently I think there was some frustration, but consistently we were underestimating how many people will take mass transit if you make it convenient. Once we changed the bus to an express bus, all of a sudden, bang, the bus got loaded, and then that bus filled, and then another bus, and so if you make mass transit, if you make it convenient for people, the same thing with our Metrolink ridership it exceeded expectations, and so thank you very much for going up and continuing that partnership with Santa Barbara folks.
Thank you. I'd like to adjourn in memory of these people on this list. Also, just a couple things. The Moore Park CHP Explorer Post opened a new post with a bunch of new young men, and this is also works on training and these explorers and various different things, penal code, vehicle code, health and safety, a whole bunch of different things that they do. So it's great to see the CHP doing some great things with our young adults. Also, an interesting one, this congratulations to Sean Sage of Royal High School for winning this, the 38th Assembly District's There Ought to Be a Law Challenge. And this is, I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's a pretty neat deal where these kids come up with some law. I think Cameron Smythe was saying, okay, what law should we do? What do you think is important? And so these kids came up with some ideas, and he won this one. And what it was that Sean, who's a foster kid himself, wanted to enlist in the National Guard, but got turned down by the courts. And so he wanted to try to serve his country. So what his law is he wants to be able to go to Sacramento and propose this law that at 16 that you have the rights yourself to enlist in the National Guard if you want. So anyway, so he won this, and so Cameron Smythe taking him to Sacramento, so they're going to go together to lobby, and he's going to learn the whole process and do this kind of thing. And so there's going to be a ceremony for him at Royal on Friday. So I thought it was kind of interesting. Age 16. I don't know, some people went to war, didn't they, at that age? 18. There you go. So anyway, so it's interesting, but it's just an interesting process to get the kids involved in the political process. I thought that was pretty neat. So anyway, those are my comments. All right, we're almost get a few of these things out of the way. So let's get them out of the way. Let's move. All right. So can we go to number 22, our fire protection district?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chairman Foy, Supervisors, Ms. Robinson. My name is Christina Jameson. I'm the Fire Marshal representing the Fire District. And today I'm requesting the authorization for the Fire Chief to apply and accept a grant in the amount of $33,702 from the Fireman's Fund Heritage Program, which will be used to equip the Public Information Officer vehicle as a mobile communication media center. There is zero match required under this program.
I'm sorry. You have a motion, is that what you said? And a second? Can I say something in regards, in your letter here, you're requesting also that you can go forward and accept more of these under $10,000. Is that what what are you asking here?
Actually, we're asking that we can apply.
Apply, without
For-
coming back to us, right?
Right.
Well, I love that. That is so good.
So we can apply with the CEO, notification and approval from the CEO's office, and then we'll come back to the board for the acceptance.
Great. So that means we're only going to see you once for a grant versus 2 times.
Correct.
Wonderful. I'd love the opportunity if everybody else can do that kind of thing too. If it's legal, no, for us to do that in certain ways, that would be wonderful if we could cut down the number of times you come. I know it takes your time, everybody else's time to do this. So, well, thank you so much for putting that in there.
No problem.
Okay, so we have go ahead. Yes.
Supervisor Foy, that is a model that we are looking at, and we're looking at revising our grant programs, particularly in a situation like this where there is no match required, there is no long-term implications, no commitments into the future relative to which could be a liability for us. So in those areas, we're looking at how can we streamline the grant application process.
Wonderful. That's great. That's great. Try to make us more efficient. So thank you very much. So we have a motion and a second, and we need a vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. Okay. Can we do 23?
Good morning, Chairman Foy, member of the board, CEO Robinson, almost, CEO to be, yes. We're here this morning just with a relatively minor lease amendment, a number of good things for the county in here. This is a lease that was approved in December of 2006 with Channel Islands Landing and Boatyard. This is the revision only to the phasing for this particular lease. Nothing changes about the project, it's only the phasing. It does increase the commitment for investment in the leasehold from $5.5 million in the lease now to $16.5 million committed investment. The lessee is now obligated to complete all 5 phases. There is no opportunity to stop midstream, and the overall length of the lease is the same. What's happening is that because of the damage to the slips last winter with all the winds, the bulk of the heavy work, which are the slips and the buildings along the water, are all being moved up into the first few phases instead of being scattered out over 5 phases. And the timing is going to be fairly quick. The lessee's representative is here. I don't know if you have any questions. There was a question that came up yesterday. I've gotten a couple of emails from the public related to the promenade through this particular parcel. That is not being set here. In fact, that will come to your board in April when we talk about the land side, the study session you just had about parks planning and promenade planning. And what the lease says is that they commit to doing whatever it is the county approves. So that's where we stand. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. I know you're trying to move the agenda along.
Any questions?
I did. It's rather open-ended, isn't it, to say whatever the county approves for the, public sidewalks and promenades they are going to pay to put in?
Well, for the lessee, it's rather open-ended. For the county,
Right, that's what I mean. But the lessee's okay with that. I'm okay with that. All right. I'll move approval.
You mean those gold-covered sidewalks?
Jenny might be back.
I think we had a couple speakers real quick. Robert Nam? No? Okay. And then Penny? Okay. And then Supervisor Flynn?
I want to ask you a question. You wrote an email about this. Can you refresh my memory? What was the purpose of your email?
I wrote an email to the harbor director, which talked about the fact that we're going to have a sidewalk along Victoria, and it was just the how we design that sidewalk. There's a difference between a monolithic sidewalk and a meandering sidewalk, and I was looking at a meandering one, which means it includes a landscape buffer between this curb and the sidewalk, essentially. But it's not part of the lease.
At this point in time, there is a sidewalk and a promenade.
Yes, it already is in the lease. So I was just talking about the design elements.
There is a difference between a promenade and a sidewalk.
You'll have to tell me about it.
Well, promenade is more of a comforting, peaceful, strolling type facility. And as you
And you shouldn't be thinking about martinis. Thank you. Thank you for that.
That's only you with good knees that can do that walking. That's it. Okay. All right. So do we have a motion and a
I
second?
kept the mic off so I wouldn't hear that.
Okay. And let's vote. Supervisor, did you vote? I did. Everybody vote? Who are we missing? We got it? Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And we'll go to our healthcare agency, 24.
Good morning, Chair Foy, members of the board, Ms. Robinson. Barry Fisher, Administrator for Ventura County EMS Agency. What we have in front of you is kind of a cleanup item for our contracts with the 3 ambulance providers. What we've had for over 30 years are hand-drawn maps of our exclusive operating areas. So as each year went by, there's always a potential for error. So we worked with the county, I believe they're calling themselves ITS now, and they were very helpful in meeting with us and our ambulance providers to go through each exclusive operating area and put this down in a GIS-based map, and it's secure within the system. They can't be changed, so as we go from year to year, they remain the same. So all the ambulance companies have reviewed this and approved what we put together, and it is secure in the GIS system.
Okay, great. Thank you. We got a
Second with a comment.
Yes.
Comment of just some
Go ahead.
some good, quiet, behind the scenes professionalism keeps going on here. I'm impressed with how we're handling so well.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Barry. Thank you very much. Everybody voted? Thank you. We got our Public Works Agency.
Good morning, Chair Flory, board members, Ms. Robinson. For the record, my name is Jeff Pratt. I'm with the Watershed Protection District. The next item before you is the approval for a grant application with the California Riparian Habitat Restoration Program. There's a match required, $375 for a total of $1.875, which will all be counted as match towards the federal portion of the project when it comes. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Do we have any questions?
We just have one.
Yes, sir.
Just repeat the match part again.
The $375 over 3 years out of Zone 1.
Out of Zone 1.
Yes,
The match is coming out of Zone 1.
Yes, sir.
Out of Zone 1's budget.
That's correct.
Oh, okay, fine.
Okay. Any other questions? We vote?
Move the recommended action.
And we'll vote.
Good work. Keep it up. We had a
Thank you.
All right. Sorry about that. We don't have, oh, here we go. I'm sorry. Treasurer's report.
Good morning, members of the board, Mrs. Robinson, Messrs. Hanson and Hanson here to answer any questions you have.
Hanson and
on
Hanson,
the
what a
January,
team.
investment report.
Okay. Do we have any questions on this? I myself had a quick question because I know you're going to be in a situation that interest rates change and everything's changing. We were at one time, I think we were making $7 million a month off our returns, and I hear we're not going to make that kind of money anymore.
No, this pretty much looks like the good old days right now.
And just you give us 1 minute of what do you think is going to happen, or where we're going to be?
I'll give you my chief procrastinator.
Okay.
Good morning, members of the board, acting county CEO. Just to give you a brief
we'll do brief
picture of what's going to happen. The last calendar year, we averaged 4.99 in interest. The payout was about 6.6 million an average, and Interest rates are predicted to go lower. I have worked with Paul Dursey and Dorothea to give them a 2.5 rate, which could go lower. We're in constant contact, so if something changes, we'll let them know. But basically, interest earnings, just a rough ballpark, will be just slightly less than a half of what they've been. And right now, the Fed rate is 3%, and that's something you could think of. Our portfolio will be around that. March 18th, there are predictions they'll go down to 2.5 or 2.25. But the main thing is that we, two things, we're in touch with the fourth floor, keep them up to date, and that I'm not planning on extending into more risky investments to earn higher interest rates.
Right.
I'm going to stay the course that I've had since 1994, conservative.
Okay. Well, I guess then, just to sum it up, if we're making $80 million a year, basically we're probably going to be making $40 million a year off this. So the county's going to take a $40 million hit on this of our revenue.
We're going to take probably at least a 50% cut, right? Because interest rates have gone in half, and they are what they are. When they go the other way, then it's fine. But we, like I said, I have a very good relationship with Paul Dursey, and have had one since 1994. And anytime I think it's going to go lower, even if it's before the budget, during, or whatever, we'll let him know.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that information.
Just a comment. I really want to compliment you on the communication you have with the fourth floor. I think that's important, that interaction, and also to not get involved in any way in any kind of risky investments, which has been your policy.
Good point.
County policy.
It's my pleasure to work with the fourth floor, both the elected and non-elected people. It's like dealing in private industry.
Supervisor Parks?
Yeah, I just had two questions. One is, I note that you don't have any U.S. Treasury bonds at this point.
Correct.
Do we generally?
Pardon me?
Do we generally have some, and we're not now?
No, we generally buy federal agencies because they have about 1/4 point higher yield, and the risk factor is practically zero. It's an implied or unwritten guarantee by the government, and agencies like Home Loan and Farm Credit Bank just simply could not go under any circumstances, and they're all top rated by the credit agencies.
Okay. And also noting with the economy and the home loan issues, seeing that we do have Federal Home Loan Bank, and I'm just wondering if that you consider that at all at risk?
No, none whatsoever. And this is their strict, their primary obligation. Like I said last time, if you think of it in your world as a GO and a trans as your direct obligation, these would be like COPs or street revenue bonds. So they're the primary obligation. And they are agencies of the government, just like the Postal Authority. When they got in trouble, the government bailed them out.
Okay.
They're going to have some tough times. They're going to be in the newspaper, but I'm convinced, and so are the rating agencies, they're equal to treasuries, so we take the 1/4 point yield.
Okay, and then the last question is, we try to invest in American companies first and foremost. I see the only ones on here that look that may not be is Toyota.
Mm-hmm. And Toyota is one of the best run companies in the world. They're AAA on their long-term debt. Their short-term debt is also as high as it can get, and they're like GE, cash flush with money. And
my question would just be if we wanted to consider sticking to U.S. companies, if there is something comparable to that you might consider, and you don't need to answer that now, but just kind of throwing that out there for consideration, because it looks like we have some considerable funds going there.
And just very quickly, I keep my eye on whatever has the least risk and the highest rating and the most money.
And this is a whole different parameter, I know.
So that's okay. Very quickly, I recently have started adding to my Chevron position because I know how much money they have. Toyota may be the best run company in the world, and GE is $300 billion or trillion or whatever. they're also top rated.
I appreciate that.
But I have my eyes
You
open.
definitely want the safety first.
I have my eyes open all the time for something safer and with a good yield.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hanson. Hanson, that's very good. Appreciate it. We have a vote to receive. Okay, we'll go 15. What's that? It's not finished? Thank you. Mr. Zimmerman?
Good morning. Item 15 is a second hearing of an item that was brought before your board last week on the SEIU adjustments that we proposed to the contract, various salary adjustments with some negotiated assignment pays. So if you have any questions, I'll...
No questions? We'll vote. Thank you. Great, thank you. 16, Mr. Nicole.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is the second reading and the adoption of the Memorandum of Agreement between the County of Ventura and the California Nurses Association. By way of clarification, in the summaries, we provided you some information where we have revised and updated some of the language in this to ensure that it was very precise as to the intents of the parties. It provides for explanations of how the base salary is defined. It identifies the correct date for the first day of the pay period in 2008. Provides for the clarification on how the retention incentive applies. These are the changes since you saw it last week. That retention incentive is intended for those people who work here in the county in nursing positions. Wasn't intended to buy people from outside. And other than that, it has the same information we provided you for a full 2-year agreement that keeps us competitive in the marketplace for all of the classes represented by the nurses.
Okay, and we'll vote. There's no public screen, so she'll tell you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Watching for the boats, John. Boats are going to line up over there.
All right. Before we go to our 10, let's go back to number 26.
Good morning, Chairman Foy, members of the board, and Mrs. Robinson. Before you is a request to approve the transfer of $125,000 in redevelopment housing funds to Habitat for Humanity in order that they may use the money to purchase a piece of property that's blighted within the Piru redevelopment project area. The property is a 9,600 square foot lot in an R1 zone. It currently contains a structure that was once used as a boarding house. The building has serious building code violations and has been vacant for 3 years. A December 2007 appraisal of the property brought its value in at slightly under $250,000. Habitat proposes to remove the existing structure and build 2 single-family homes. The lot will be legally divided and ownership would go to 2 very low-income families. To complete the purchase of the property, Habitat also has a request for $125,000 in home funds, which is on the today's agenda under item 17. In order to meet health and safety code requirements regarding the use of redevelopment set-aside funds, your board is also asked to direct staff to enter into a contract with Habitat to ensure that a 45-year affordability covenant stays with the property. The project has the support of the Piru Neighborhood Council, and with that, I'll answer any questions that you have.
Do we have any questions?
Move the action.
We have Supervisor Bennett.
I just want to compliment Habitat. I think we're really fortunate to have them in this county. They're doing great work, and compliment staff for moving forward with this.
Great. Will everyone vote? Thank you. 27.
Good morning, Robert Gallagher with the Environmental Health Division. This item concerns a request to apply for a state grant that will provide $83,000 that will fund newly mandated activities related to above-ground petroleum storage facilities. We're also asking your board's approval to share a portion of awarded grant funds with the cities of Ventura and Santa Paula, who will be responsible for carrying out these activities within their jurisdictions. If your board approves this proposal, Ventura and Santa Paula will each receive about $6,000, and the county will receive a little more than $71,000, which we expect will fully reimburse Environmental Health Division costs associated with above-ground storage facilities for the next 2 fiscal years. So we're glad to answer any questions that you
Can I
have.
just ask you one? The idea of bringing the cities in is to help them pay for their overhead on this too?
Well, when the state put together the dollar amount, they included the above-ground facilities in those 2 cities as part of the total award. So, but they left it up to the county to have discretion on whether or not to share that money with them. So we don't have to, but we think in fairness that they should get the money.
Great. Okay, good. Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Move it.
I'll second it. Okay.
You second?
Yes. We'll vote. Thank you. We have our correspondence agenda.
Move it. Move the correspondence.
Second. Okay. Good. We've got about 12 minutes. Do we have anything closed session that can go that quick?
We can give it a try.
We can give it a try?
Sure.
Good. You wanted a break instead? Hold on. We got some other. We'll bring this meeting back to session, and we're going to go to our 10 o'clock time certain, number 17.
Good morning, Chairman Foy, members of the board. My name is Christy Madden with County Executive Office. I am pleased to present today's recommendations for HUD-funded programs, activities, and facilities to serve persons of low income. This is our 23rd year as an entitlement county. Today we're addressing just over $1.8 million in funding for the county's share of the CDBG funds. We do share the balance with our 5 small city partners. We're also addressing home and emergency shelter grant funding. We will be returning to your board on May 6th with our annual plan that incorporates the city's share of CDBG funds into our annual plan, and we'll also be presenting you with a proposed 2-year extension to our consolidated plan. The overall funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development has been declining for about the last 15 years. As you may be aware, the current administration has threatened to eliminate the Department of Housing and Urban Development for the last 2 years. So consequently, there has been an increased emphasis on program performance and timely expenditure. Those factors do influence staff's recommendations when we come to you with projects for funding. There are several new projects presented for consideration this year. You heard about one of them earlier with the Redevelopment Agency. That proposal is for Habitat to develop 2 single-family homes on a piece of property in Piru that has been a code enforcement case for several years. The RDA also does propose to implement a housing rehab program in conjunction with their housing set-aside funds. That would be to implement the housing program that was recently adopted by your board. The vast majority of our applicants are returning with continued funding requests for existing programs. These applicants are strong performers in our program and provide beneficial services to low-income residents as indicated in your board letter. The Public Works Agency did apply, but is not being recommended for funding for their El Rio septic tank abandonment program. They do have a sizable balance of funding unexpended on the books, and consequently we can't continue to add funds and let that sit there unexpended, although that does continue to be a high priority in our consolidated plan. I would like to acknowledge my staff. I have Mark Suma here from our office. He administers our home and emergency shelter grant program. And Meg Kimball Drury, she is our newest addition upon Susan Van Abel's retirement last year. Meg manages the CDBG program and our regional planning documents. They were both very instrumental in helping formulate this letter and review the many applications that we received for funding. This does conclude my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have either now or at the close of the public hearing.
Okay, we've got some questions before we take some speakers? No? Thank you. Melinda Johnson?
Good morning. Most of you I have met before, but for those of you that I have not, I'm Melinda Johnson. I sat on the Superior Court for almost 21 years. And when I retired from the bench, I actually have a full-time job, but when I retired from the bench, there was one place only that I went thinking now I would have more flexible time and I would not have the limitations and ethical strictures that you have as a judge. I only went one place to volunteer, and that was to Project Understanding. Because every day this agency touches those in our county who are really the most needy, and despite the kind of bad reputation they sometimes have as bums and addicts and so forth, actually really among the most deserving of your assistance. These are people who really do want to work and take care of their children, and life has simply been very hard on them. We know that Project Understanding, of which I'm now president of the board for it seems like the 6th or 7th year, I lost count here. At any rate, we know that we are recommended for funding, and I strongly encourage you to follow the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And thanks for taking the time to come down, Mindy, and all your good leadership.
Yeah. Karen Jensen.
Good morning. I'm Karen Jensen with Habitat for Humanity of Ventura County, and I just have a few words of thanks to Christy and Monica for their ongoing support, and to reiterate that this project is really important to the community and to our mission. It really accomplishes both aspects of our mission. It eliminates substandard housing and it creates affordable housing. Thank you for your recommendation.
Thank you. T. Silvestri? If I can say that.
Good morning. My name is Taya
Oh, I'm
Silvestre,
sorry.
and here on behalf of...
I missed it all. I'll just go, hey, you next time.
That's okay. I'm here on behalf of Women's Economic Ventures. I graduated from their self-employment training program last year, thanks to a scholarship that I'm sure was funded in part by CDBG money last year. So I'm here to express my thanks to you for funding that and to let you know that Weave has been a huge force in my life in helping me get my business started. I have a marketing agency here in town and doing really well, and I don't know if you have any questions, but I just wanted you to know that it's a very important program for economic development.
Well, congratulations on starting your business and being successful.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Mary Ann Rooney?
Good morning. I'm Mary Ann Rooney. I'm the regional leader for Women's Economic Ventures here, and we serve the entire county. I'm happy that Taya is here this morning because she is one of our success stories. She now has her own marketing business located right here in Ventura, and she failed to say that she's back on our Strategic Advisory Council as a set client. She also serves as an instructor for us as well. So once we get our clients in, we keep them and hold on to them and have them become more familiar with what we do. Just to give you a little bit of information, Weave has been in Ventura County since 2002. The organization started in 1991 in Santa Barbara. And since we've been here since 2002, we have served more than 1,600 clients right here in Ventura County. And we have loaned out more than $350,000 to people right here in our county. And over 43 businesses have started or grown with our assistance in Ventura. We serve about 87% women. 72% of them are low to moderate income, and almost half of those are Hispanic clients that we serve. And I want to thank the county for its past support and hope that you will accept the staff's recommendation for the next year. And if there's any reprogramming dollars, we'd be happy to be considered for that as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have.
I just got a question. It sounds like you've had a lot of people come in and you've been pretty successful getting these people up and going.
Yes.
Well, that's great.
It's really exciting because we have clients that have started businesses all over the county. And my challenge is, truthfully, to get over the grade and get out to the Conejo Valley and bring more people into our program as well. So.
Are they neglecting East Valley? Well, that's great. They'll hear your success and they'll want to come get you. So
Thank
that's
you
great.
so much for your support. Really appreciate it.
Well, okay, there we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jane Lax?
Good morning, Chair Foy, Supervisors, and County staff. It's my pleasure to be here today. My name is Jane Lax, and I'm representing Turning Point Foundation's Our Place Shelter. It is the only shelter in all of Ventura County that serves the mentally ill homeless. In addition to 10 beds, we also have staff 24/7. We have a drop-in center that allows those who are homeless and don't necessarily want a bed to be able to have a place to come for a hot meal, a shower, be able to get warm clothing, and a linkage to services that are provided by county behavioral health and mental health. So it is my pleasure to be here and to thank you for your past funding and to thank staff for their recommendation for this year.
Well, thank you for what you do for
Thank
our
you.
residents. That's all of our speakers. Any other comments or questions? Supervisor Bennett?
This is always a hard day, but a pleasant day when you see, just great people like Shane and Mindy and Habitat for Humanity. And I mean, you're just seeing great people in our county that are doing great work, and it's inspiring for us to see that. So I really appreciate this is a drop in the bucket compared to the money that you need. but it certainly is a pleasure to be able to partner with you and try to seed it as much as we can from this. So I'd like to move the recommended action.
Second. I'd like to make a comment. Mr. Chair. Sure. Yeah, I agree with the comments that Mr. Bennett made. We don't always agree, but we do on this. There is money left in the fund for the El Rio Sewer project. You know, the project moves rather slowly. And the purpose of that money is to provide money for those who are totally unable to afford the hookup and destruction of the septic system that they have, which is a cost of about $15,000. One thing this gives me the opportunity to report to the board. I've been working with the director of the State Water Resource Control Board and had a meeting a week or so ago, and we discussed, and I was pointing out that there are about 10 communities in Ventura County, in the state of California that really are having a tough time with these state mandates, like on wastewater treatment plants and septic to sewer. And so we discussed it, and the state water board is going to hear a recommendation by the state water director, one I met with, about providing no interest loans to communities and increasing the loan from 15 years to 30 years. So in the case of Piru and El Rio, which would be the two communities in Ventura County in the unincorporated area, this would reduce significantly the cost the monthly cost that these communities will have to pay. And I wanted to report that to the board. It appears that it's going to happen for the benefit of Piru residents and El Rio residents. Let me just say, for El Rio, it will mean reducing the payment from $127 a month for sewer payment down to about $85 a month. I don't know what it will be in Piru, but it'll be a significant reduction. So my goal is to get that down to $50 a month in the unincorporated area of El Rio, which will mean some more grants and some more help. But that's significant change.
That's good news. That's great. Supervisor Parks?
Thank you. I do support the motion. I just wanted to note that we're allocating some $278 million. Wouldn't that be nice?
Where'd you get that money?
278,000 for mobile home rehabilitation. Another 100,000 in home buyer program out in Port Hueneme. But particularly with the mobile home rehabilitation, I know that we're seeing across the state of California, particularly the rezoning of mobile home parks and elimination of mobile home parks. And out in my district, the Caneo Mobile Home Park has been rezoned for commercial or high-density residential, which it does make it lucrative for an owner or someone to come in and purchase it and remove the mobile homes and build either apartment buildings or commercial shopping centers. And as a result, you have dislocated residents who are often very low and low income. Mobile home parks, mobile homes are considered under our housing affordability strategy and our housing element to be low-income housing, and we are required by the state to have areas for low-income housing, and that's what's driving a lot of the cities and all to try to build affordable housing. But at the same time, I hate to be losing, particularly in my district, a location that has at least 40 households of low and very low income. With that, looking at areas where you can have mobile homes, it's a very low cost way of providing that kind of housing, low income housing, and I just would hope that as we do have these funds available, that we look at something along the lines of helping to either put in some mobile homes to allow people, and even in cases of emergencies where they need shelter, I know that's been discussed, but also when people are dislocated. Not that we need to take all the mobile homes in the cities and move them into the unincorporated county per se, but just I think first and foremost is being able to provide a home for people who are going to be dislocated, and then oftentimes that's a permanent home that is needed. So I would like to have some studies and look to see if we can be able to provide some location where mobile homes can be placed and they could, pay rent for them. But we do need to make sure that we can preserve housing for people who are being dislocated.
Thank you. Supervisor Long?
Yes, thank you. As has been said, and staff report, these are unfortunately year to year to year decreasing funds. And to our good people out there who work and who are become very creative at pulling different funding streams together to make the good work you do so successful, thank you for that. I think it's very important when we look at these few dollars that we have to use them wisely in the best possible distribution so that we provide housing where appropriate and shelter where appropriate and program services where appropriate and job training opportunities where appropriate. And I think we have a good balance of that in this allocation process before us today. So I thank you for that and encourage all of us, board members in our respective districts, to invite folks in to talk to us and hear what good work Weave is doing and what good work is being done by Turning Point and these others, so that when they're trying to reach it out into our community to really serve the people that they serve and we serve, that we use these good resources and leverage them, help them to leverage as much as possible. So appreciate your work.
Thank you. I also do appreciate all the hard work you do, and I know it's not easy to have to you hear some great stories and have to divide that money up, but I also appreciate there are people who come. There's a big list of a lot of people that are receiving money, and there's only a small group of people here to say thank you. And I think the other people should be a little bit more gracious with that. But I do thank you all for coming and making your comments, and thanks again for the staff for doing their work. So we have a motion. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want, we already have a motion and a second. Or we did that one. Did you clear it? Okay. I made the motion.
Okay. Now we'll vote.
The comment I just wanted to make is that we have this 10-year plan to end homelessness, and we are fully funding the real economic development in Piru here, and I think we're trying as best we can to continue to use our HUD funding, and appreciate staff doing that and being consistent with that. So we're making one more step with the steps that we've taken the last couple of weeks. That's also good. So appreciate that.
Just one little short comment.
Sure.
I really support the comments that Supervisor Parks made. I hope we can find some way to accomplish finding some area for mobile home parks.
That's great. All right, so we all voted? We're missing? Supervisor Flynn, you voted? We have? Good. Congratulations all. Thank you. And I think that was our last. That's it. So.
And thank you to staff.
Thank you. We'll go back to closed session. Thank you. Back. Will we have an announcement out of closed session today?
We do not anticipate any announcements.
Okay, then we'll adjourn out of closed session. Thank you.